Some summer days feel like peace. But this one didn't start that way. It started like every other. Early morning stiffness in my joints, a low ache in my spine, and the metallic click of my prosthetic leg locking into place before I took my first step out of bed. I have a below-the-knee amputation. It was from a car accident years ago that ended a life I once knew when I was a runner, a hiker, a yoga teacher. Overnight, I went from being the one people turned to for movement to someone who had to relearn how to walk in her own kitchen. But over time, I adapted. I healed. And most importantly, I reclaimed joy. Part of that joy included this little house with a backyard pool I saved for over half a decade to build. I don't go to parties. I don't travel much. But every morning, I roll out my yoga mat near the pool, stretch gently, then lower myself into the water where I feel less broken, less limited. That water became my sanctuary. It's where pain didn't win. That summer, something shifted in me. I decided to stop hiding the way I looked. No more oversized t-shirts or conservative swim dresses. For the first time in years, I bought a bikini. Simple, elegant, black with gold trim. Not flashy, just something that made me feel, dare I say it, beautiful again. The first day I wore it, I was nervous. Not because of how I looked, but because of how people might look at me. I sat by the pool, book in hand, music playing softly. No one else around except for the neighbor 2 doors down, Karen. Now, Karen is, let's just say, she's the self-appointed guardian of community values. She's on the HOA board, leads the neighborhood watch, and once reported someone for having a Halloween skeleton left up in November. I'd interacted with her once, briefly, when I first moved in. She eyed my leg, my single-car garage, and said, "Well, I hope you keep things neat. We take pride in our street here." That day, I noticed her standing at the fence, arms crossed, mouth thin as paper. She didn't wave. She didn't blink. She just stared. I turned up my music slightly and ignored her. The next day, a piece of paper was taped to my mailbox. It read, in blocky print, "Please be considerate. This is a family neighborhood. We ask that residents dress appropriately while in view of others." No name. No letterea. No querí. I didn't even feel mad. I felt tired. Like someone had taken a pin and tried to poke a hole in the bubble of peace I'd spent years building. But instead of shrinking, I did the opposite. I put on the same bikini, then a sun hat, poured a glass of lemonade, and played Aretha Franklin's Respect a little louder than usual. Karen didn't like that. She stood outside for almost 15 minutes on the phone, pacing back and forth. I couldn't hear what she said, but I had a strong suspicion her sentence included the words disgusting, inappropriate, and exposed. I rolled my eyes, but what came next still shook me. About 30 minutes later, as I floated peacefully on my back, I heard the faint whine of sirens. Not near, but not far. And then I saw them, reflected in the ripples of the pool, red and blue lights flashing behind my backyard fence. 2 uniformed police officers walked through the side gate. My heart jumped. I sat up immediately, dripping, confused, alarmed. "Ma'am," one officer said, his tone cautious but not aggressive, "we received a call about a potential indecent exposure in the vicinity." I stared at him, chest heaving. "In the vicinity?" He glanced at his notepad, then back at me. "A neighbor mentioned seeing an adult woman sunbathing and swimming in the nude or in an indecent state. We're just here to verify everything is in order." I blinked. Then I laughed. But it wasn't funny. "I'm wearing a bikini," I said, gesturing to my completely standard two-piece. "And I'm on my private property. I also happen to be a disabled woman using my own pool for physical therapy." The second officer, a younger one, looked visibly uncomfortable. His eyes flicked to my prosthetic, then back to his partner. "It appears everything is fine here." "She's done this before," I said, pulling myself from the water and wrapping a towel around my waist. "She left a passive-aggressive note yesterday. She's been staring at me every time I come out here." "Would you like to file a report for harassment?" the younger officer asked. I hesitated. "Not yet, but I might." They apologized, left, and I stood in my backyard, chilled not from the water, but from the realization that this woman didn't just disapprove. She was willing to use the police to enforce her personal sense of decency on someone who didn't conform to her idea of beauty or normalcy. That night, I didn't cry. Not at first. I paced. I rewrote imaginary comebacks in my head. Then I sat on the floor of my bedroom, robe wrapped tight around me, and let myself feel the full weight of it. I wasn't ashamed of my body. I was angry that someone still thought they had the right to make me feel like I should be. The next day, I called my friend Taylor, an ADA attorney who had worked on cases involving workplace discrimination and neighbor harassment before. She listened quietly. Then she said, "We're not going to let this go. You have every right to exist in your space, in your skin, without fear." Together, we drafted a formal letter to the HOA board and Karen. It documented the false police report, her previous warning letter, and cited ADA protections. We added a copy of my doctor's note that listed swimming as essential to my rehabilitation. We didn't threaten a lawsuit. We didn't need to. The message was clear. Karen received it via certified mail 3 days later. That same afternoon, she marched to my driveway, fists clenched at her sides. "You think you're going to intimidate me with this nonsense?" I stepped out calmly, my phone recording in hand.
"No, Karen."
"I think you already intimidated yourself when you called the police over a woman in a bikini." "You're not setting a good example," she barked. "For who?" I asked. "Your shrubs? Your mailbox? Or your sense of superiority?" She stood there, sputtering, before retreating. The HOA board meeting that month was unusually full. Word had spread. I showed up in a crisp white blouse, a folder of documents under my arm. Karen was already there, trying to rally support. She claimed I had drawn attention to myself on purpose, that I provoked confrontation, and that I was disturbing the family-friendly atmosphere. I waited until she was done. Then I stood. "My name is Maya," I began. "I live 2 doors down from Karen. I am a homeowner. I am also a disabled woman. And last week, I was the target of a false police report for doing something completely legal, swimming in my own pool." I laid down my folder. Inside, you'll find documentation from my physician, a log of previous complaints, and a timeline of the incident. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for respect. Silence. One board member cleared her throat and said softly, "Thank you for sharing that. It was incredibly brave." Another whispered, "I'm so sorry this happened." Karen tried to speak again, but this time her voice shook. No one came to her defense. After that meeting, she stopped showing up. Weeks later, a for sale sign appeared in her yard. I didn't celebrate, but I also didn't feel sorry. Some people leave because they're ready to grow. Others leave because the world refuses to shrink around them. I stayed.
And I swam.
Every day that summer, I bought 2 more bikinis, invited friends, hosted quiet dinners by the pool, and for the first time in years, I didn't second-guess the way my body took up space. Sometimes the deepest freedom isn't found in a courtroom or in winning an argument. It's in choosing not to hide. I've learned that you don't owe anyone an apology for surviving, for healing, for wearing what makes you feel whole. If someone stares, let them. If someone glares, smile. Because shame only grows when we feed it. But confidence? That's contagious too. So put on the bikini, sit by the pool, take the picture. Let your skin catch sunlight. Let your joy become a protest. And your peace a revolution. You didn't come this far to ask for permission. You came to live.